friends, Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. Putting a little front end on this video to kind of set the stage, let you know what's going on. This is an older video. I went back in the archives. It amazes me how many videos I have never produced. There's a bunch of them in the tin can, as they say. I would say there's several dozen at least that I have never even looked at. But this is one I kind of picked through some of them and picked one out that I thought you'd enjoy it, or at least I hope you will. I have not produced the video yet. As a matter of fact, it's not even 8 o'clock in the morning yet. I don't have a calendar here, but I believe today's Tuesday. Well, I know it's Tuesday, and I think it's July 13th or 14th, whatever it is. So I'm going to start producing that video, and basically I'm going to work non-stop on it with a few exceptions. You'll see when it comes out, so that'll give you some idea how long it takes to put a video out. I just thought I'd show you quickly some of the other things that are occupying my time. I'm working on the last hurrah guitar, putting the back braces in it. Let's see, when I get done with this little intro to tell you about this video, I'll run in there into the office, that is, and work on orders that came in on the website last night. Get those orders out if there are any, and I think there's one or two. Get those down to the mailbox. Then I'll come back and I'll start working on that video. Of course, I'm going to glue one more brace in this first too before I even go in there. So it's just kind of a constant change modes interruption day. That's what I do these days. So about this particular video, it's on a Gibson mandolin, and I know it's got a top crack in the top, and I don't know what else I run into. It's been too long ago. This was from 2018. In fact, I think it was March of 2018 according to the dates on the videos. One more thing I just want to mention. If you haven't been watching the shop talks, I would like to suggest that you tune into the shop talks. I know many of you just watch for entertainment purposes and aren't really wanting to learn the technical side. But there are some things in the shop talks too that I think you'll find amusing, amazing. Like the shop talk before last, you know, I can't remember the dates offhand, but it covered a base for a router that someone made and sent to me. His name was Willem. But anyway, it's an awesome base for a Dremel router, and I go through that in detail and show you that. So you might want to take a look at that shop talk. And then I also want to suggest that you check out my website. If you've had trouble on my website in the past, especially trying to buy something, I put a new engine on there, and a new sales engine, I guess you'd call it, and I think it should work much better for you. So give that a shot again, please. And if you run into problems, I'd appreciate an email letting me know what the problem is, and that way I can try to fix it. This is one of the products you can buy there. I've got, 5 different t-shirts to choose from, and there's 4 different sizes on each t-shirt, large through triple large. You can get training there on playing the mandolin. The Nashville number system is the root of that training, and you can also get some Nashville number system assistance or training on the guitar. You can buy deer antler saddles for your mandolins there. Got those things right here in this tray. You can buy songs there. And you can also book a stay at the rental retreat. And the rental retreat, by the way, is the only way these days that you can get immediate service. So if you stay at the rental retreat like one night and bring your instrument with you, then I'll fix your instrument and you can leave with it. Now, that's assuming that it's that type of a repair. If you're doing a full-on restoration, unless you plan on staying 4 or 5 days, you probably can't do that. But if you want to stay 4 or 5 days and pay the rate for the full restoration, well then I'm sure you could. That's kind of the whole gist of everything. So I don't really honestly know what's going to be in this video, because I have not looked at all the clips, and like I said, they're from 2018, and so I hope you enjoy it. Hello friends, Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. And as always, we have another project. This one is very similar to one we did not too long ago. I don't know when this video is going to air, so it may be a very long time ago before you see this one compared to the one I'm about to tell you about. The Gibson A model with the worst fretboard ever was just literally released within this week, and as I get this one in, it's almost identical copy here. It's deja vu all over again. It's another Gibson A style with the F holes. They don't really look that much alike exactly. Now they do look quite a bit alike. They got the same tailpiece and all that. I don't know age-wise how old this one is. Again, I don't see any numbers, markings, labels, anything in this mandolin. So I'm not going to go there in terms of model or anything because there's so many of them I don't want to try to even keep track. This one, the fretboard is in pretty darn good shape actually for the age. But it definitely has its demons, and I'll tell you where they are. Before I show you this, the immediate reaction is going to be humidity. You know, it needs to be humidified. Well, you can humidify this thing all day long for 24 hours a day for the next 5 years, and it's not going to fix this problem. There is an issue, and I'm not saying it's not humidity related. It could have some relationship to humidity, but that didn't cause this whole problem. There's more to it than that. It may be a moisture related problem. It could be that the wood was too green when it was built. That's a possibility, but that's not the same thing as humidity. Moisture level in the wood and humidity level is two different things entirely. So drying the wood down to the 6% recommended dryness, and incidentally, I might just say that if you left a piece of wood in your shop, you know, like you cut a tree down and you cut boards out of it, and then you left them on a shelf in your shop and expecting them to dry, they will dry, and they will dry a little more just about every year, but somewhere around 10 or 12%, they're going to quit drying on you, and they're not going to get much drier than that. So they still got 10-12% moisture in that wood. And it's going to stay that way a long time. And it might go down a little bit over years, and if you put it in a hot attic, of course it'll dry. Or if you put it next to a wood stove, of course it'll dry more. You know, but without applying excessive heat, that wood's going to stay pretty much like it is. Or excessive airflow, possibly that could dry it more too. All that to say is I suspect that may be part of the issue with this. I suspect that this may have not got dry down to the 6% on the top, especially. The back doesn't look like it's got any issues. You see no cracks or anything in the back. The top is cracked here, it's cracked here, and what the telling tale to me is that it hasn't shrunk so much. It's hard to explain. The sides are pushing out right in here. They're pushing out right in here. The sides are kind of in the tight areas where all the torsion is. The sides are pushing out. Okay, they're pushing out here. They're pushing out here. Where most of the torque is, that's where the sides have an issue. So what I'm saying is, in addition to, I think this could be the perfect storm of all kinds of problems. I mean, it could be humidity related, it could be moisture related in the top, and I think more than anything, what I really think it is I think they put these sides in the mold under extreme stress, meaning that these sides didn't want to be that shape, and they weren't bent properly or whatever, and they were pushing out like crazy, and they just forced them in the mold and said, here you go, and they just glued it on. They were having a bad day at work, and they just did it that way. Or maybe they were behind in their quota, and they're just cramming them in the mold and sending them down the line, you know. And I say there was too much stress on these sides, and they're just busting out. They're just pushing out everywhere. And that's what, to me, is cracked this here and cracked it here and cracked it here. But you can see that the sides are just literally pushing out in any of this high stress areas. And it's not an easy thing to fix. When they're under stress, that's a hard fix. If you drop something on this and caused a crack, that's an injury, and though typically you can take that crack, push it right back together with your fingers, put glue on it, you're good to go. You don't even need to cleat it for the most part because there's no stress there. But this is stress. I guarantee you, one way or the other, however you want to define it, it's stress. Something is just pulling this thing apart. So pushing it back together and gluing it, it's going to need cleats for sure, and it'll be a miracle if it holds. That's just the bottom line, the way it is, without taking it completely apart. And why don't I want to take this completely apart? Well, it's got this binding on it. You're going to tear that all to pieces. I mean, that you never know how that binding is going to come off until you start taking it apart. Sometimes the binding will come off and stick right to the back or whatever, and you don't even have to worry about it. Just put it back on with the binding. That's not always the case, and unlikely. And in this case, if you took this off, that binding's real tight in the neck joint here. Anyway, the bottom line is, with binding, it's always, you got another little issue there, and you could screw up the looks of it and all that. Plus, it's not broke everywhere. Like in the places where it's not so much stress, it's not broke. And now you're going to make that look bad because you're going to have a seam there and you're going to crack the finish and it's going to look ugly and all that. So you're asking for more trouble. Plus, the back's not really what needs to come off of this anyway. The top's what really needs to come off of here if you were going to really try to fix it correctly. Now, sure, you could take the back off and fix the top better. That's true. I'm not saying you couldn't. But the top is really where the stress is for whatever reason. The sides are really pushing out. So I think the top was too wet when they built it, and I think the sides were under way too much stress. That's my opinion. Sure, humidity is always a factor, but I don't think that's the story on this particular thing. Okay, having said that, so how do you go about putting this back together? Well, as I already mentioned, if you can push it together with your hands, and it's not real hard to push together, then, if you can find a way to clamp that, put glue in there, clamp it up, you're good to go. You're probably no problem at all. That's not this case. So I was thinking, how could I make this work? So let's take a look down here. I have my F5 mold here that I use for my F5 mandolins. And I thought, well, let's just see if it would happen to fit in there. I knew it wouldn't. I already knew that because I've tried this before. But I thought it might be interesting for you to see. And I laid this on here as close to center line as I could get. And then I took a dark pencil, or just a pencil, and drew around it. And hopefully you can see how much difference the shape is. I thought you'd just be interested in seeing that anyway, how much difference the shape is than in F5. This pencil line around here is the A model. It's much bigger body, you can see, all the way around. And it comes way up in here further too. So it's just a totally different shape. So I thought about, maybe if I had a body mold like this, I could set that down in there and then use wedges and force it. But then I got to thinking, well, that would work, but that's going to screw up the finish and it's going to just make a mess, and that's not going to really do a good job. It would get the job done, but you're going to pay for that too because it's going to cause all kinds of scarring on the sides here where you have to put a wedge in. So I don't really know how I'm going to fix this yet. I really don't. The other issue that this thing has that he wants me to address is that notice how far the bridge is leaning forward. It's really leaning forward a lot. All movable bridge type instruments always want to pull forward. They all do. Basses, violins, everything like that. Banjos even, I'm sure. They always want to pull forward. So you continually want to keep them straightened up. On your F styles, your A styles, whatever, you want to continually straighten up your bridge. And if you don't do that, this is what they look like over time. Then the one more factor that I just discovered on this, just as I was getting ready to start this video, is that this thing was tuned more than a full fret high on every string. So that's putting way undue stress on this mandolin. And you want to be sure that you're not doing that. My guess is that maybe the guy's tuner was set on something other than 440, or maybe he was tuning by ear and he's just off. I don't know. But it was way high, and that's just putting way undue stress on it. After I tuned every string down, I'm actually able to push this together better than when all that stress was on there. I couldn't push it together at all. So my hope is once I get the strings off of this, maybe I can push all this together by hand, get it glued up, and maybe we'll be good to go. I have a little mirror down inside there, and I don't know if you can see the little tiny, in the mirror, there's a white thing. Well, that's a cleat. If you look at this crack here very closely, this side of the crack is obviously the bigger part of the crack right here. but there's another finer crack right here, and then I noticed a dent in that finer crack, and then when I looked inside, that finer crack has already been cleated. That cleat does not go across this part of the crack. So this had broke at one time and was pushed back together and cleated, and now it's broke again across here, which tells me there is definitely stress there. The way this is stressed out is that this side is getting pushed this way a little bit too. I don't think it's just going straight out. If it was, I think they would still be in a line, but the point of this break here is above the point of that break there, if that makes any sense to you. So it's kind of twisting that way. I put the clamp on down like this. Was able to squeeze this nearly back together perfectly. That cleat that they put in there would be the easy cleat to put in because it's right next to the hole, but that's not going to hold this. It's going to need a cleat back here in the middle. It's really the whole joint should be cleated. That pretty much closes it up right there. It's not perfectly level, but it's very close. This joint here would need glue in it at the same time. I don't know how well they glued that little crack. I have a feeling if we glue this and cleat it, that little crack's going to open back up again. I don't know. It's just a guess, is all I can tell you at this point. It's under extreme stress. The only way I know to fix it 100% would be to take it completely apart. That's hours and hours and hours of work. You can almost build one as fast. So I don't know if the customer would want to do that or not. I don't think he does based on what he told me so far. He was looking for a quick and dirty fix, I think. Hopefully a permanent fix, but more or less a quick and dirty fix. This may be what we end up having to do, but I'm not sure it's a very good permanent fix. So what I'm going to do is, like I always do, I'm going to paint all these cracks with water. The water actually weakens glue to some degree, but then I plan to flood the water out with plenty of glue. This crack here over on this side is very tight, but I know it's a crack. I can see it move, and now that I've got the water on there, I can see the water moving as I flex it a little bit. I'm going to try to use the glue bottle as my forcer and force it down into the crack. And I'm going to work the crack back and forth to try to get glue to go down in there, but it's not going to go. Got the little suction cup here. I don't have much faith in this either, to be honest with you. I've done it before and I've not had that great a success with it. I put it on there and then move it off of the crack and try to pull it off so that I can not pulling the glue back out of the crack, but even that I don't think's doing that great. It does look like glue's getting down in there, but you know, not perfect. I'm expecting to see glue squeeze out of there. I do see glue in the crack. As I wiggle that, I can see it getting in there a little bit better, but it's not great. Okay, I'm not too worried about that crack though compared to the other cracks anyway. Alright, so these have had time to dry up a little bit now. The wood's still moist, so I'm going to cram the glue down in there. This is going to go down in there. I don't have any problem with getting glue in this one. The suction cup isn't really even needed here because it's going down in there, I can tell you. Matter of fact, I'm afraid it might be running out on the inside. Let's see what it looks like on the inside there. Yeah, glue's all the way through. Can definitely see the glue, so that's not an issue getting glue down in there. As a matter of fact, it's falling down in there more and more as gravity's pulling it down. Gonna be all kinds of glue squeezing out of that one as we tighten this up. We're going to put this thing under extreme stress. I want this down fairly low. You can see the glue really coming out of there now. I'm going to try, but I doubt this is going to work, to force this top down because the top is actually sticking up proud on this side, on my side of the crack. Aha, it does seem to be working a little bit. Yeah, it does. And it's forcing more glue out just by doing that. It's amazing how much glue's coming out of there now just by doing that. I don't know if you can see how much glue's coming out of there, but it is. So get rid of that. That definitely helped level it out. It's not perfect, but it's far better. I put this clamp down as low as possible because I needed to go over the top of it with one pulling the opposite direction here. And that's going to hopefully close up the rest of the crack. And it looks like it might have done that. There's a lot more glue squeezed out. I'm not too worried about the glue squeeze out on the inside. Each crank I make on it just gets it a little bit better, seems like, so that's better yet. That's about as good as I think you're going to get that. I think I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. Unfortunately, I don't see glue squeezing out down on this crack, which I was hoping to see. There is another crack over here that we didn't even try to get glue into. Maybe we'll try both of these cracks again later or something. But while this is sitting here, and I'm going to give it 24 hours, I'm going to start devising a method for getting cleats up in there. And I actually may put just one long cleat with the grain going the opposite direction of this grain. A thin piece of maple I think would be the best type of solution, because it's going to take something with some good strength to hold that. And the bottom line truth is, wherever I put the cleat, it may cause it to crack somewhere else because there is a lot of stress there. Well, here's the present state of the union this morning, and it's been, roughly 24 hours, not quite that long. And I guess I'm going to go ahead and take the clamps off of it. My original idea was to try to work with the clamps on it and get in here and put a thing. It's hard enough to go through this little tiny sound hole. I mean, like, my little finger won't even go through there, you know what I mean? I can get it down through part of it, but I can't get up in there far enough to reach up in here. So it's just too complicated with all this. It's just going to have to hold on its own, and I think it will, but I want to put a cleat in here if I can get one in there. And it does look like it held, at least for now. And, I was able to push that binding in and glue it at the same time, so the binding's back in and glued. It looks pretty good, really, considering what I didn't really think I would even be able to get it to look that good, to be honest. So I'm pretty happy with the result. The biggest problem is that the guy already put a cleat on this first crack, and he put it right in here, and it's a pretty good sized cleat. And so it's kind of in the way. It's like it's not hard enough already. So I've got to get behind that cleat and put a large cleat in this whole area here. And I want to get a fairly large cleat in that because it's obviously under stress across here. Well, as I said, I start off with a large patch here, and I've got it roughly in the shape it needs to be in to fit in there, I think. You keep in mind this other patch is already right here, so this has to go up in here somewhere. Now there's kerfing in here, so I have to allow for that, and hopefully this is enough, that it'll fit up in there. This is not flat here either, so that's another issue. This may not work because of that, but the biggest issue is how do you get it up down, in, and back up? I mean, it's not easy. People think working through these sound holes is, shouldn't be no big deal. Well, it is a big deal, and it's very hard to do, especially on something like this. That lays relatively flat right there. It's not too bad, actually. But on the inside, will it lay like that? I have no idea. And now I'm trying to decide, how could I hold it? I got to make something that'll hold this and lift it up and put it up in there. So some type of a heavy wire with some way to connect to the back that can come off. Well, here's our first iteration of something to try. I want this piece to lay in there like this, and the reason I want it laying like that is the grain goes this way, which is across from the grain going this way. I've made a piece of wire here that's bent to fit through the hole right, and the only way I can think of quickly to attach this that I could get it loose would be this two-way tape. I don't know if this is going to hold, but we're going to give it a shot. It's, like I said, this is try number 1. I also ground this wire flat on the edge so that there'd be more surface for the tape to hold on to. Otherwise, the tape would just be holding right on the round peak. So this wire, I don't know if you can see that, has been ground flat. And therefore, it ought to hold on this better, plus give me a little better pressure on this. Alright, so roughly in this configuration right here. I can get it up in there sort of, but is it at the right angle to lay that flat against the top? I doubt it, and I really doubt that. But how do I get it there? Then even if I get it there, how do I hold it there? You know, this is not simple. There's not, and you know, how do I clamp it? That whole bit. So there's nothing about this that's easy. I don't even know if it's possible. This may be an impossible task, actually. Because of the reverse thing of the mirror, I can't honestly tell you how far off I am from making it work. It just doesn't look good. And then there's no way to hold it. So then you got to take it back out. I don't know, man. This is not a simple thing. If that other patch wasn't there, this would be a whole lot easier. That other patch is fairly thick. It's thicker than this one, and it's this way, so I got to go past it and then come back up inside there. That makes it harder. I'm tempted to try to knock that patch out, but I don't know if I can get that out and what other damage I might cause if I do that. So, I don't know. I'm on the end of that patch right here a little bit. Be nice if it would just come out, but I doubt it will. It's just too awkward. Even if I got it up in there, I don't know that I could, I don't know that it would be flat if I got it up in there. Seems like it'd be close. I don't have any kind of clamp that I can reach up in there and hold it up into the top. This is a very tough situation. You know, I cut this straight on this side, or it was straight cut actually, and that's actually a good thing because there is a brace coming down through here. And so this kind of fits in between that brace, this kerfing here, and this other patch. It looks like it's fitting. I put the mirror in from this side over here across, and I could see the brace a little better. But man, you're talking about working in the blind. This is totally working in the blind. My good mirror with the light on it won't fit through the hole at all, so it just won't go in there. I could try my video camera, but I don't think it's stable enough. You know, it doesn't stay still enough is my problem with it. Well, you can see what I can see. There's the patch that's on the inside there. There's the sound hole. There's my finger kind of above the sound hole there, which there's my finger poking down through the sound hole, if you can see what I'm talking about there. Okay, so anyway, that's where I've got to put the patch, in this area here. And now that I've actually taped the camera in place, and it's fairly stable. And look at there. It's pretty good. The camera's got a little delay in it there. I move and then I see what the camera does. It's really hard to tell, even in the camera, if I'm up against it. It's about as good as it gets, though. Now the problem with that is, let's say that's right, and I don't know that it is, but let's say that's right, and I've got glue on there. So what do I do next? I got to find some way to clamp it or hold it up in there. and I don't know that I can get a clamp in there. I'm going to try to tape this in place. I know you can't see everything off camera here. Whoops, it's moved already. Well, I'll have to peel a piece of tape off of here. Show you kind of what I'm doing here. Maybe you can see it from a different angle. I'm going to try to tape this rod in place temporarily so that I can turn it loose and get some clamps and different things. Just going to try to tape it in place where it's at, right there. Don't know that it'll hold. Held a little bit. It's not holding very good though. That figures. Let's see what happens if I get some clamps and see if I can reach in there and hold it. Well, at first glance, this looked real promising. I thought I could get this clamp to go up in here, but the problem is the clamp is too wide to fit between the F-hole up into this area to get up in far enough to work. And then it would be too wide on the backside. Now I could grind all that down, but then I'm kind of ruining my clamp. I've had another thought. As you can see, I'm still holding the patch up here in the video behind this patch. This thing here, this type of technology would be something that I might be able to utilize inside there. This particular tool, not likely, but anyway, this is for measuring bridge posts in a violin. If I was able to get that into the right place, which so far, no, I haven't. You know, like I can kind of get that swung into place there. But what's odd to me is that it doesn't seem to even reach the darn thing, and it looks like it would be plenty long when I have it out here. But when I get it in there, it just barely reaches the end of the thing. So I don't know. It's hard to explain all the issues you run into on something like this. That's not working worth a darn, and it should work. I don't know why that's not pulling up and holding that. But apparently that's not near far enough. It would have to be another ½ inch longer. Gee whiz. I don't think I've ever run into one any more complicated than this. It's really weird because the camera's got about a 1 second or so delay of everything I do, then I see what I just did. And that's awkward until you get used to it, I can tell you. I just can't even tell, even with the camera, if I'm flat up there or if I'm at an angle. It's really hard to know. The only thing I can come up with at the moment is to try super glue and just see what happens. And boy, I hate to do it that way. And the problem with that is super glue works great until you use it. As soon as you use it, it runs everywhere and causes you trouble, and just, you know, the theory is perfect, but the application sucks big time on something like this. You know, you put super glue on here, but that doesn't mean it's going to make it up to this surface and make the contact up inside there. So, gee whiz. I don't know that it'll get on there enough coverage to really stick well. And if it doesn't stick well, there's no point in doing this. I wish I could reach up in there and feel that, because I see that glue there, but I can't tell if it's a lump or if it's flat or what. But I can't get in there to do anything about it, to try to clean it up. This is a really tough one. I'm going to try something. It may fail. I've got a couple of strong magnets stuck to the two-way tape here between this wire. So they're trying to stick to the wire too, don't get me wrong. I've got 2 of them on there, hoping that that'll increase the strength. I don't know if it will or not. I took this apart and I want to make sure that it's still going to line up and fit up in there before I put the glue on it. It looks like it will, or at least sort of. Best I can tell, that fits. So I'm going to put Tight Bond on here and spread it around good. I'm going to be a little bit liberal with it, a little more than I normally am, so that it'll make, you know, good contact to the top. Okay, now I'm going to try to get it down through there as carefully as I can without getting glue all over everything else. Now, what's the odds that I can get these magnets on here? There's where the magnets are. And they're holding. Now, is there any chance I can get this rig back out of here, which I doubt. Golly, it just doesn't seem very good. It seems like it's rocking, probably on the glue that's there already. It seems like it's rocking. I can't really tell. It's hard to say. See if I can pull it down. It's making pretty good glue contact though. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know. It looked like the glue coverage on the top was pretty good. I would like to be able to get this metal thing out of there because I think the weight of it is pulling down against that, and that's probably not good. But I don't know how I could do that. If I can reach in there and hold against the magnets, which maybe I can, right there is against the magnet, and wiggle this loose. I got it loose. Amazing. And now if I can get that loose without pulling the magnets off, okay, I did it. Wow. Well, it's up in there. How good that is pretty hard to say, I gotta be honest. Let's see if I can poke around on it in a place or two. It looks like it's pretty solid. If I can get way back there and poke on that corner, I'd like to know what that feels like. It feels pretty solid actually. I guess we're just going to have to call that good enough. You know, it won't hurt the sound any up in that area. It looks like heck from the camera, but on the other hand, if it keeps this whole thing from breaking out again, you know, a lot of people will say, well, the problem is your patch is way too big. Well, yeah, I know the patch is way too big, but keep in mind, it's already broke twice across right here. So, you know, if you don't patch a pretty big area, it's just going to break right outside of your patch again. So I'm trying to reinforce that whole area so that it doesn't, you know, break again. And it might work, it might not. You know, it's just a 50-50 shot. Pretty much it just won't hurt anything to try, and therefore I did. It's been another 24 hours. I took the clamps off. I checked up in here and everything seems fine as far as I can tell. I had a little trouble getting my magnets out of there because the magnets were stuck to the double stick tape. So I made this little tool that reached up in there with this flat thing and pulled the magnet, and it stuck to the magnet stuck to this, and I pulled them right out, no problem. I've double checked this one here. It seems tight. I got good glue in that one. This crack here though is much tighter. It's loose, but it's much tighter. I don't think I can get wood glue in there well enough to fix it. By the way, this already had been cleated. This had already been cleated. As I mentioned to you, this first crack had already been cleated. And so now we've got a big cleat in here to fix that area. I'm going to try to, you know, since this was already cleated, I'm not going to even try to put another cleat in there, even though that cleat barely had done any good. I think this is going to hold it myself, this type of glue. And I don't know what kind of glue they used on it before, but this cleat here is way back here. It's not holding up in this front area anyway. What I'm going to try to do is put super glue on this crack, which I hate to do, but I think that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to reach in here and hold this up to try to keep the top level while it sets up. It's not an easy thing to do, but I got to put the gloves on because I may get my fingers glued inside there. I don't like doing this because I don't like to put super glue on a crack like that, but I don't think there's any other glue that's going to go down in there very well. It's really a tight crack. I got this pipette here. I'm hoping I can get the glue to go down in there with it without creating too much of a mess. Alright, I'm going to hold that up tight like that to try to make the top match good. Now that it's had a little time to set up, I'm going to go ahead and spritz it with the dryer here to help it dry quicker. It didn't work. It didn't even get in there, I don't think, which is unusual because that glue usually goes everywhere. That time it looked like it might have took. It stayed level that time. Okay, give it that a little bit of time to dry up a little bit more. But I think that might have took that time. I went ahead and opted for the stabilization option on these cracks in the back here to put super glue in them, held them together as best I could, and just stabilized them at that point. They're not bad enough, I don't think, really to warrant taking the whole thing apart. You know, the customer, the vibe I was getting from them, they weren't too interested in major surgery, so therefore I think this is the best option. I really believe these sides are under extreme stress trying to push out. Just holding them where they're at is probably better. You know, trying to push them back in, it's just impossible. They're not going to go in and stay, and nothing's going to hold them if you put that much pressure on them. I mean, it would take a ton of pressure to move that. Even though that's only sticking out about a 32nd of an inch, and here too, you just can't push it back in. It's that hard to push. So I just stabilized them where they're at and called it good. The top on this thing is pretty dirty. I don't know if you can see all the little marks and crud on there. I would probably call that DNA for the most part. So I'm going to clean this up first, then we're going to just touch it up with some varnishes and stuff, and clean up the fretboard. As a matter of fact, that fretboard looks pretty worn down. I haven't looked at it much. And we'll clean up the peg head there, and then I think the customer was wanting a pickguard on here too, so we'll see where it takes us. I just got some warm water, and I put one little drop of dishwashing soap in it, and I'm just going to wash this dirt off. At least I think it'll come off with this. There is a lot of crud on here. It's not wanting to come off easy, I can tell you that. I thought it was mostly just drops of like sweat and junk, but I don't know what it is. Well, a lot of it came off because I can see the staining on the towel here, but not all of it came off. Maybe you can see those spots all over the top there. It depends. I'm sure it depends on the light, but you know, and I can see the glare in the camera, but maybe you can just see. There's just literally probably 100 spots, if not more. Looks like something dripped and splashed across it. And I can't imagine what that is. It does not want to come off with just soap and water though, although it did clean it up some. Let's try the miracle polish and see if it'll remove a spot or two. This may take a little bit of elbow grease. We might even have to go to sandpaper on this and then buff it back out. It's getting it a little bit, but boy, it takes a lot of rubbing to get it. Makes it look better in that area, but it's not getting rid of the spots. Well, let's try a little 1200 sandpaper and see if that'll do it. Yeah, sandpaper might be knocking it off. Whatever that stuff is, it's on for the long haul. Yeah, I think we're going to have to sand it off. It's coming off with this, but just barely.
Well, let's see what that looks like. How much did we get rid of, and where do we need to sand some more now? Those spots keep coming back even. They must have really affected the finish. It's an improvement for sure, but it's definitely not completely gone either. Whatever that stuff was, it was pretty caustic to the finish. Well, that's improved, but I got to be perfectly honest with you, it's not as good as I was hoping. Whatever that stuff was, it really messed up the finish. I don't know if you can see it across there or not. If I turn it just right, you can still see a lot of those little bumps in the finish. They're smooth now, but they're discolored, or whatever you want to call it, stained the finish. I'm going to just go ahead and buff it out with the Simichrone now, and we're going to call that good, because you can only do what you can do. It's certainly improved though. Well, that's a whole lot better. It just isn't quite as good as you want. Like I always say, you always want it a little better. But you can almost see, it's almost like, well, it's gone now. All the spots are gone, but it's almost like it was an acid etching in the finish where those things were. They just left like little tiny etch marks. So, I mean, it is what it is. It ain't going to get no better, so we're just going to call that good. Certainly way better than it was. Alright, now I'm going to touch up the body with some dye just to make it look a little better too. So like spots like this that are just obviously eyesores, and these little white lines and things where where polish and everything else gets down in those cracks, the glue and everything else. Well, that, improves the looks of it a lot. It's, it is what it is. It's beat up, it's old, it's been used, but it looks better. Let's move on to the Pickguard. The customer wants a Pickguard installed on this. Let's see what we can do with this. He bought this. I don't know where he got it, if it was used or what. It looks like it's a used Pickguard. Or maybe it was the one that was on here originally. I don't know. That's possible. I was thinking, I may have it confused with another customer. Well, that should be a fairly easy install in this particular case. Yeah, that must have been the one that was on there because it matches up too perfectly. The way I'm going to, and I'm going to use the word attempt to fix this, is I'm going to I've got 3 toothpicks. I've already tried them dry in the hole. I'm going to put them into some super glue. I'm going to put a drop or 2 in the hole. Spin them down in there a little bit. Put another drop right on the hole itself. Trying to fill the hole up pretty good with the super glue and the toothpicks. Once again, after it sets a little while, I spritz it with this stuff, and I'm just going to break them off even with the surface of the hole there. I'm going to use this awl to make an impression right in the center of those toothpicks there, so that the screw will start right down through the center. It's going in real nice and snug, real tight. Might even be a hair too tight, but I think it'll work. Alright, before I get that one all the way tied, I want to check the hole up here. Should have done that already, I guess, but I think I'm going to go ahead just from the safety's sake and put a toothpick down in that hole. Yeah, maybe even, wow, that hole's way deeper than I thought it would be. And we got a couple of toothpicks down in there. That'll be perfectly fine for that. I'll go ahead and spritz it just so that it's good and dry before I put the screw in. That's good and solid. We'll tighten this one the rest of the way down now. And then this little cap screw, the little cap nut, is not tight. It just so happens that I have my little tiny adjustable wrench here that fits these things pretty good. It's all good except that it might be too high for the bridge, possibly, and it might be a little bit in my way for a fret job here. After doing a little leveling on the frets and then trying to recrown some of them, I can tell they have to be replaced. They're just too low and you can't even recrown them. And I still don't even have all of the grooves out of them yet. So it's time to replace them. They're pretty worn. As I prepare to refret this mandolin, I've got a pretty well soaked paper towel sitting on here. And I'm just letting that fretboard soak up the moisture. I'm hoping that'll keep the tear out to a minimum. I used to buy my fret wire pre-bent, and it's a little easier to put it on when it's pre-bent because the ends stick down in there a little bit better. And you know, somebody reminded me of that the other day, that you know, they buy theirs pre-bent and it's just easier to put it in that way. And I got to thinking about it, and they're right. I mean, it is easier to put it in that way. I used to always buy it that way, but for the last several years I've been buying it straight, and I just kind of got away from worrying about the bend. But I did make myself many videos ago, and you can see the video where I introduced this. I can't remember the number right now. If I can think of it, I'll put a link to it in this video. But anyway, I did make this fret wire roller here, and you can just tighten it down a little bit, run your fret wire through here. You have to keep your fret wire standing up straight is the only problem with this one. I could have made some more grooves, I guess, but anyway, you run it through there a couple times, and you just tighten it up a little bit each time. I don't know if I've tried mandolin wire on it or not. It seems like it's giving me a little more trouble with the mandolin wire. On the guitar wire, it works real good. This is kind of twisty on me, but it does bend it, and it does put it into a radius. Well, that's weird. Never had a problem with it before. I've bent a lot of fret wire with this and it's worked great, but right now it's fighting me. I may have to make myself some different rollers here and put a groove in them too to accept the fret wire to keep it from moving, because the fret wire is sliding back and forth right now. I don't know why it didn't slide back and forth before though. Oh well, that's probably enough arch to make it work good. Could be a little bit more bent, but like I said, this might be the first time I've used it on mandolin wire. Okay, this is pretty soaked, I think. So we'll just start pulling the wire out and see how good it comes out without, hopefully it's going to come out without breaking up the fretboard too much. That one looks real good. I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not, but that fret wire is pretty badly worn. It's got very little top left to it. Very little tear out so far. Very happy with the way it's coming out. It came out really clean, virtually no tear out at all. I'm going to dry it down a little bit more and then maybe sand it lightly before I go putting the wires back in. While I'm letting the fretboard dry there, I'm going to go ahead and take the tuning keys off of it because my little neck support jig here, it fits much better if the tuning keys are off. It's a little more work, but it's kind of worth it, I think, in the long run. Those ferrules, I'm going to go ahead and take them out too because they're going to bounce out as I start driving the frets in. Okay, that fits it pretty darn good. I'll just put a paper towel or two in there and clamp it to that, and that'll take up the space. Just a light sanding is all we're doing here. It's high right in here. That's what I was feeling when I was sanding it there. I have a triple thickness of paper towel on here, this blue paper towel. That'll take up the space plus pad that back side a little bit. Now we're getting ready to start putting the frets back in this. I've got an extra board laying underneath this time, and I've got this propped up where it gives it good support all the way through. I've also got this section propped up on the extra towels and things. Just tried to get it where it just works out where there's enough, even pressure all the way across here. Every instrument's a little different, so. In case you're wondering what this is just a block of aluminum that I use to push down on the fret. It absorbs some of the shock of the hammer and treats the fret real nice as it goes down in there. Got the tuning keys back on it, just getting ready to fit the bridge to it just to make sure the bridge is right. And I've got the bridge turned the proper way here. You can see the bridge is high in one spot, it's not really touching good. Looks pretty good now. Alright, well let's see what it looks like when we get the strings on. I just wanted to put 2 strings on here to see about if the old nut was going to work or not. And it's going to be too low. I can tell it's just going to be too low, especially with the new frets. And I'm also looking at this bridge and how it's cocked forwards again, and as we tighten up the strings, it's just going to go forward and forward and forward, I can tell, because it's got that natural bend to it. and it's rosewood anyway. So I think it's time to say goodbye to that bridge, and let's put a ebony bridge on here and see what that does for it. Just going to lay it up here first to see how it fits to the top, if it's even close. It's not too bad. It's not perfect, but it's not too bad. It definitely looks straighter, so that's a good thing. As a finishing touch, I'm putting a large piece of felt under the tailpiece here, sliding it on, and I think we're done with this thing. I would like to tell you it was easy, but golly, I usually try to tell you the truth, and it wasn't easy, and I don't know why exactly. Nothing about this mandolin seemed to be easy. Every single thing I did seemed to be hard, and I don't know why. Everything. But we got the action really low. It might even be a hair too low. Got the bridge standing up straight, and we got the pickguard on there. It's all tuned up. Let's play a little bit for you so you can see what it sounds like. It's got a pretty nice sound. It plays good. It really probably hasn't been set up that well in a very, very long time. Hope you enjoyed another look at another old Gibson hay model. Thanks for watching.